Hello everyone, and welcome to my first ever Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. I wanted to do one of these for a while, but I wanted to wait a little bit till the new Hero Sport came out, but now it is finally here. I can dive into favorite deck all time. Let's go! So first of all, for the main deck, I run 2 copies of Elemental Hero Neos. He is the main monster used for most of the fusion summons in this deck, and overall, I can be decent body as well. 2,500 attack points, 2,000 defense points. Overall, pretty darn decent. Now, accurate, but decent. Anyway, next up we have Elemental Hero Spirit of Neos. One of the new cards released in the new set Power of the Elements, and is absolutely fantastic for the deck, because what he does is allows me to search any card that lists Neos' name back to the hand as long as it's a trap card. He can return himself to the deck to special summon any normal elemental hero. On top of that, if I get attacked directly, he can special summon himself and can't be destroyed by battle that turn. Overall, pretty darn good card. I really like using him. Next up, I run 2 copies of Elemental Hero Stratos. Stratos has been a staple in hero decks for a long time and still is in this one because, man, he's pretty darn good because he can add to my hand any hero monster from the deck. And on top of that, can destroy spell and trap cards up to the number of hero monsters I control, except Stratos. Overall, pretty darn good. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. Shadow Mist, if she's sent to the graveyard, I can add any hero monster from my deck to my hand. On top of that, if she's special summoned in any way, I can add Mass Change to my hand. Overall, pretty darn good. I love using Shadow Mist. Finally, for the Elemental Heroes, I run 1 copy of Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. Always used for fusion summons. On top of that, he can, if he's normal summon, I can revive 1 hero monster from my graveyard. Good for triggering Shadow Mist or Stratos. On top of that, if he's used for fusion summon, I can draw 2 cards and discard 1. We're all pretty darn good. Moving on, we have the Neo-Spacian, starting off with Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin. Aqua Dolphin, when summoned, not when summoned, just in general, I can discard 1 card from my hand and look at my hand, and then discard 1 card that has less attack point, less than the highest monster in my field, so good at discarding hand traps and so on. Moving on, I have Player Scarab in this deck. Not the greatest of the Neo-Spacians, only gains 400 attack points for each spell and trap card my opponent controls, but I mainly use him to summon one of my favorite Neo-Fusions. Next up, I have Neo-Spacian Grand Mole. Grand Mole can, whenever he attacks, he can return himself to the hand along with the monster he attacks. Pretty darn nice. And finally, I run 1 copy of Neo-Spacian Dark Panther. Dark Panther can copy an opponent's monster effects, so that can come in handy quite a bit. Anyway, now I move on to the monster that I'm never going to summon in this deck, Rainbow Dark Dragon. Rainbow Dark Dragon, he's a decent monster in Rainbow Dragon decks, I think, but I purely use him to go into Rainbow Neos. So, yeah, that's all I have for him. Anyway, next monster that only monster that I run at 3 in this deck, Frostkeeper. Frostkeeper is fantastic because I can discard him and special summon 1 Elemental Hero Neo-Spacian from my hand or graveyard. If it's the graveyard though, it negates its effects. On top of that, if he fusion summon or just special summon an Elemental Hero Fusion monster, I can banish him, draw 2, and return 1 card to my deck. Pretty darn nice. So now, I'm gonna move on to the spell cards. I bumped my camera, my bad, and that was a mess. Yikes. So anyway, for the spell cards, I run 3 copies of EN Engage Neo-Space, their newest spell card, and good lord, is it really good, because I can send either Neo-Spacian or Elemental Hero from my hand and or deck to the graveyard, and vice versa, depending on what I have in my card. And then special summon 1 level 5 or higher Elemental Hero or Neo-Spacian my deck to the field, and then add Polymerization to my hand. This card is literally everything in the kitchen sink. I love it. Moving on, I have 3 copies of Hero Lives. Thank goodness it's at 3 because I love this card, because at the cost of half your life points, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Elemental Hero from your deck to the field. Pretty good, actually fantastic overall. Only downside is you lose half your life points, which makes you a little bit vulnerable, but hey, that's what Spirit of Neos is for anyway. Moving on, we have 3 copies of Emergency Call. These can be swapped out for hand traps or anything like that, but honestly, I like using E-Call in this deck. It lets me add any of my any of my Elemental Heroes that I need, and it all targets for each Neo-Space, and overall, pretty darn nice. Then I run 2 copies of Neos Fusion. This can be used to send to summon any of the standard double contact fusion monsters, such as Flare Neos or Grand Neos, by sending their materials from the deck to the graveyard. On top of that, you can banish this card if those monsters were to be destroyed or sent back to the deck due to their effect, in order for that to not happen. So it's just nice protection. Next up, I run 2 copies of Super Polymerization. This can fuse monsters from either side of the field, which is really, really nice. Then, moving on to the 1-ofs, I run 1 Instant Contact. By paying 1,000 life points, I can special summon 1 level 7 or lower hero monster and/or Neo-Spacian fusion monster from my deck to the extra deck to the field. So if Neos isn't on the field or in the graveyard, they have a lot of restrictions, such as not being able to attack, not being able to use their effects, and have to return the extra deck during the end phase, which is a pretty yikes. But Neos is usually always on the field or in the graveyard in this deck, so it doesn't matter that much. Anyway, I also run 1 copy of Polymerization. Polymerization, a standard fusion card, can be searched by Ian Engage Neo-Space. Pretty nice overall. Miracle Fusion. I can banish monsters from my field or graveyard. It can be searched by one of my monsters, Elemental Sunrise, and can go into certain monsters such as Shiny Neos Wingman or Absolute Zero. Then I run 1 copy of Miracle Contact, similar to Miracle Fusion, but instead returns those targets to the deck and is only exclusive to Neos Fusions. So, yeah, Neos Fusion monster. Now I run 1 copy of Mask Change. Mask Change is what I use to go into my Masked Heroes, which is really good because the Masked Heroes I run this deck are pretty good. I only run 2 of them, but hey, one of them is busted. I think everyone knows what it will be. Anyway, I run 1 copy of EN Wave. EN Wave is one of the newer cards that has been released. I can, if I fusion summon an elemental hero monster, I can special summon 1 Neo-Spacian monster or good old Neos from my deck to the field, and then if any of my monsters shuffle back in, like with Miracle Contact, then I can special summon 1 elemental hero from my graveyard, which is really, really nice. Then I run 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army, adds 1 level 4 or lower warrior monster to my hand. 1 copy of Foolish Burial, sends any monster from my deck to the graveyard, and then 1 copy of, or I just realized that wasn't the 1 copy of Forbidden Droplet. Dang it, I was gonna have a grand reveal there, but yeah, I run Droplet in this deck. I was lucky enough to pull it from Brothers of Legend, and I am so happy to have this card, because what it does is I can discard any number of my cards from my hand to the graveyard, up to the number of monsters my opponent controls, then negate those monsters' effects, and if I send the monster, spell, and or trap to the graveyard, it gains immunity for each of those types. So in this case, if I send a monster to the graveyard, it can't be negated by monster effect, or my opponent can't respond to this card with monster effect. Really nice! So, anyway, that's it for the spell cards. Let's move on to the final main card in my main deck. Trap card, Favorite Contact. Really like the art for this one, especially how Shining Flare Wingman looks on the right here. Amazing. But anyway, what this card does is I can shuffle back in monsters from my hand, field, banish zone, or graveyard back to my deck, and summon 1 monster or 1 fusion monster to the field. So, example, if I have Flame Wingman, or example like Flame Wingman and Neos in my graveyard, and or field or anything like that, I can shuffle them back in and special summon Shining Flare or Shining Neos Wingman. So overall, really, really nice card. And on top of that, if Neos is used, they're not shuffled back in during their own, or they just can't be returned back to the extra deck in general. But really good. Now, finally, we have the fusion monsters. Which, I say fusion monsters because I only run fusion monsters in my extra deck because all I really need. Because I get locked into fusion summoning quite a bit. So, anyway, first of all, we have my new favorite card of all time, in all brutal honesty, Elemental Hero Shining Neos Wing. I love this card because whenever he's summoned to the field, I can destroy monsters based on the number of attributes just on the field in general. So example, if I have a light monster in the form of him, and they have a dark monster, I can destroy 2 cards they control. Very nice. On top of that, it gains 300 attack with every monster in the graveyard. Very good, or in my graveyard. Has this standard Flame Wingman effect of destroying a monster and then dealing damage equal to that monster's attack points. And can't be destroyed by card effects. Very, very nice. Moving on, we have Rainbow Neos. Rainbow Neos is just generally very good in this deck. can shuffle back monsters, spells, and your opponent's entire graveyard, depending on what you send, and is very, very nice. Then I run the only triple contact fusion deck, Elemental Hero Nebula Neos. Nebula Neos is absolutely insane, because whenever we summon, I get to draw cards equal to the number of cards my opponent controls. So they have like 6 cards, I get to draw 6. On top of that, he gets to negate one of my opponent's cards' effects, and he can also negate himself if he wanted to, just to make it so he can't go back to the extra deck. Is going back to the extra deck effect is pretty nasty, because what he does is banish all cards on the field face down, which is really powerful but can leave you wide open, but that's what Spirit of Neos is for anyway, just to act as protection. Work out, but gotta use him wisely. Then I have one copy of Elemental Hero Brave Neos. Brave Neos is pretty good, because if he destroys a monster by battle, I can add one card that lists Elemental Neos deck to the hand, so any of my new Neos support, at least spell and trap card. And it gains 100 attack points for every Neo-Spacian or Hero monster in my grave, so pretty decent overall. Then I run one copy of Aqua Neos. Aqua Neos, by discarding one card from my hand, I can randomly discard one card from my opponent's hand. Pretty good. One copy of Flare Neos. He's not the greatest, but I still love using him because nostalgia. He gains 400 attack points for every spell and trap card on the field. Yeah, pretty big, but that's about all he can do, and he's not as great as one of the other cards known as Air Neos, but he hasn't been reprinted in forever, so Flare Neos is the best alternative. Then I have Elemental Hero Dark Neos. To my knowledge, he's probably one of the first monsters to ever have a negation effect, but it's a pretty, it's okay one, where he can just negate one monster the opponent controls, for just like the whole turn. The way they balance that is he shuffles himself back in deck by the end phase, but it doesn't really matter that much, because usually this deck is really good at one turn killing. Anyway, I run one copy of Grand Neos, the final of the OG Contact Fusion. Grand Neos can turn one monster my opponent controls to their hand. Pretty decent overall. And now, moving on to the normal Elemental Heroes, I run one copy of Elemental Hero Sunrise. Sunrise is one of my favorite hero monsters. He can search Miracle Fusion. If another hero monster attacks, I can destroy one of the card my opponent. And then for every attribute I control in my field, all my monsters gain 200. In case if I have Sunrise and another like an Earth attribute, all my monsters gain 400. So very, very nice. I love Sunrise. Then I run one copy of Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. Zero, when he leaves the field, destroys all monsters my opponent controls. Really good. On top of that, he gains 500 attack points for every water monster on the field, so that doesn't pop up too often, but when it does, it's kind of neat. But anyway, moving on, we have Elemental Hero Skirtydao. Purely here as a super polymerization target. That's really it. On top of, looking cool. But yeah, that's all he's here for, because he only gains 100 attack points for every Elemental Hero monster in my graveyard. That's not the greatest, but, he looks cool, so, and pretty decent for super poly, so, that works. Except I have, the final Elemental Hero. In my deck, I run Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, the OG! Love Flame Wingman, even though he was a little bit hard to summon before, but now he's really easy to summon with instant contact. And on top of that, what he does is he destroys a monster in battle, he inflicts damage to the opponent, that monster's attack points. Really nice. Really love Flame Wingman. So nice. Normally now. Anyway, now I have the Masked Heroes. So the first one I have is Masked Hero Acid. Purely here for the Absolute Zero Acid combo. What that is I use Mask Change on Zero to turn him into Zero Acid. And since Zero left the field, I can destroy all monsters my opponent controls. And then Acid's effect kicks in where special summon, I can destroy all spell cards, spell or trap cards my opponent controls. So overall, both of these guys work really well together, and I just love this combo. Hasn't been popping up that lately. Well, not much lately, and you can swap Acid out for any of the other guys like Cosmo Neos, but, I like using him. Then I have the best Masked Hero monster hands down, Masked Hero Dark Law. I can't have one of my hero decks without Dark Law. He's so good because he banishes all cards my opponent sends to their graveyard. Yeah, that's really good, so he can win games on his own. On top of that, if my opponent adds a card from the deck to their hand artificially, he can banish one random card from their hand. So, overall, pretty great. Now, the final monster I run in my deck is Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. He's also here for a Super Poly target, similar to a Scurrydao, mainly due to his materials. I thought his effects are pretty decent, where if he attacks my opponent, they take double damage from him. So in this case, if he attacks him directly, instead of taking 15, they take 3,000. So, very nice. On top of that, if he's sent to the graveyard, I get to draw a card. So, yeah, pretty decent. But anyway, guys, that is it for my hero deck. Let me know what you thought of in the comments below. If you all enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Yeah. We'll hopefully do another deck profile in the future, depending on how well this video does. So, yeah, it does well, because I really enjoyed making this. So, anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye!